another day at the office, as they say. So, all right, so we gonna talk some boxing, of course. I'm gonna talk in particularly, well, a lot of different things, but mainly it's gonna be about Shakur Stevenson and basically how Shakur Stevenson over the last, well, basically just over the last month and some change, basically has just disappointed everybody, including a lot of his supporters, fans, etc., etc. Now, you know, there's still people trying to defend him to a certain degree and to try to take little shots at Devin Haney, whatever the case may be, but be proved that he's a smart businessman, and everybody should try at one point or another to believe in themselves, gamble on themselves, and follow their own path, and not always follow the direction, the traditional method that you are expected to follow. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you have to shake some trees. You got to. You gotta shake stuff up a little bit. There's always gonna be that dude that's gonna criticize you, or people gonna criticize you for wanting to do things your way. And sometimes you should do things your way. Sometimes people just don't like change. Sometimes change is needed. Look how they did, Jaylen Brown. Criticized the man for being a deep thinker and being smart, and tried to ridicule him and attack him and make him feel guilty about being smart. So, go figure. Now, I already talked to, I talked to Bill. Like I said, I know what's going on. Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan on Monday, then we should have a fight. We should have an announcement by next week, location, etc., date, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, I know where Devin may be fighting. This out of 3 locations. I've been told not to tell the 3 possible locations where Devin could be fighting Keyshawn Davis at. So, like I said, I have to wait till I get the okay. We can sit up here and talk about what Devin didn't want to do and all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, to me, Devin was given too much to Shakur anyway by agreeing to fight him at a catch weight of 144. But Shakur, he got his bluff called. And that was just the bottom line. Once Devin said, okay, I'll do 144, do we have a fight? That should have been it. That should have been all. We should have had a fight announcement, etc., etc. Shakur was the one that insisted on the fight being at 144, but then he said he was willing to go up to like 154 to fight, Conor Ben. So, at the end of the day, Shakur's just like told lies, and he's been caught in his lies, and he's contradicted himself. He's went on several different media outlets and said one thing and then another. One minute he says that, he's not worried about, Devin Haney coming in 20 pounds, fight night. Then the next minute he said it is a concern. At the end of the day, the main reason why that fight did not happen is because Shakur Stevenson wouldn't commit to the fight. He wouldn't commit to the fight. That's it. That's all. Okay? He wouldn't commit to the fight. He didn't want the fight. He did not think that in a million years Devin Haney would call his bluff and say, okay, I'll come down to 144. Do we have a fight? So Shakur had to find a way. He started to look like his name should be in Shakur Stevenson, because he seems to be really insecure. No matter how much he wants to try to display this swag and bravado that he really doesn't seem to have, because everybody is seeing this. Y'all know for a while, I was one of the biggest Shakur Stevenson supporters out there. Even when Shakur was like doing all that, everything has like a boiling point. But after Shakur pulled this little stunt, or should I say this big stunt, that was pretty much it. I mean, who's out there for him to fight? He sits up there and says that Shakur Foster is trash. Shakur Foster ain't remotely trash. Hell of a fighter. And that's another problem that me and a lot of people have with Shakur Stevenson. You love tearing down black fighters. Like every time I look around, dude, you love to tear down these black fighters. A lot of times why we can't get black versus black fighters is because of some black fighters. And as you can see, shout out to Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford gave Devin Haney his props. I think to a certain degree, Bud really respect what Devin Haney doing. I wouldn't be surprised in the near future. I'll keep it in the buck. Don't be surprised that one time or another you may see Bud working with Devin. And the funny thing is, he's supposed to be so close to Shakur, but he don't like. And I know what Bud trying to do. He probably trying not to go in on Shakur because they tight. But even Bud see how Shakur is moving. That's all it come down to. He just moving. He moving funny, and people starting to see it. It's getting hard to defend this dude day by day. Okay, so now you with Zuffa. Okay, so the Devin Haney fight fell through, because that's not gonna happen. All you did is put Devin Haney in a better position down the line. You never know what's gonna happen with this Zuffa deal. Now, if you don't fight the people that Zuffa wants you to fight, then at the end of the day, they're gonna do away with you. You know, they just gonna look at you funny. You signed like a deal for like $100 million. Now I heard other people say that Devin was worried about Shakur making more money than him and all that kind of. I don't know about that, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't know how true that is. It all came down to the fact that Shakur just didn't want to fight. Shakur doesn't seem to want to fight anybody of substance. From whatever happened with Floyd, from whatever happened with Floyd Schofield to Shakur Foster, you don't want to fight El Rayo. You don't want to fight. I mean, good grief, dude. Okay, you got a great win. You was riding off a high note, beating Teofimo Lopez the way you did. Now, me myself, I think Shakur should have tried to go for the stoppage. I think the stoppage was there. I think Teofimo, to a certain degree, was damn near begging Shakur to stop him. But at the end of the day, you left something in the ring with Teofimo to where Teofimo can make another excuse why he lost this particular fight. And then look at Teofimo Lopez. Bounces right back, lands his own deal with the zone, and got a big fight coming up with Rolly Romero. Which is amazing. Coming off off a loss, he gets a title shot. But then again, that happened with Ryan Garcia. So, I mean, Ryan Garcia come off a loss, and then he ends up getting the title shot. Okay, cool. Whatever. So it's just like with Shakur, like, what's up, man? It's like, okay, it's July. You know? It's July, heading into August. Pretty much. I mean, Devin hasn't been in the ring for a while. You haven't been in the ring for a while. So it kind of made all the sense in the world. And in all likelihood, Shakur was going to return to the ring, or he is returning to the ring maybe September 26th, because Zuffa has a date set for September 26th. But the fight not happening pretty much because of Shakur. And I'm glad that whatever happened with Devin Haney, there was some wiggle room to where he could go do something else. So once again, Devin is in a great position. He has to deal with the zone. Look at the position that Devin Haney is in. Golden Boy just signed the extension with the zone. Top Rank is now with the zone. PBC is now with the zone. So at the end of the day, then of course, you know, Matchroom, all of the major promotional companies and some other smaller market promotional companies signed a deal with the zone. So when you think about it, Devin is in a great position. He's in a great position. And that's what you're supposed to do. You ain't supposed to take the first deal that they throw at you. You're supposed to always weigh your options. And like I said, people can say what they want to say about Bill, but Bill always puts Devin in a great position. A lot of people didn't like how Bill was moving, because like I say, sometimes people are afraid of change. There are some things that need to be changed. Now, I also believe in if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. But then if if the current model needs to be adjusted or modified, yeah, I'm all for it. Especially if it isn't good, or it's outdated, or it hasn't been fair from the gate. And that's all that didn't happen with Devin. So we gonna see what's gonna happen with Shakur Stevenson. To me, it just comes across Shakur, he just don't want the fight. And that's just the bottom line. He just doesn't want to fight Devin Haney. I get, because I'm gonna tell you something else. People want to talk about what they heard. Well, let me tell you what I heard. Not from one, not two, but three different people attached to this situation, that Shakur secretly wanted a rehydration clause. He wanted to catch weight along with a 10-pound rehydration clause. So he was gonna try to handicap Devin Haney as much as he could. But this is the same Shakur Stevenson that called other people out for, allegedly weight draining and all that kind of stuff, and questioned other people. So this is the hypocrisy of him. And, like I said, he'll get mad. He'll call you a hater and all this kind of stuff. And he'll say that we don't know shit about boxing, because like I said, that's their go-to move. When you question these guys and you call them out on certain things, They get mad. Then they say, you don't know shit about boxing. Well, we know enough. And at the end of the day, we're learning how it works. And that's why these dudes don't be wanting to do interviews. And they get mad. Oh, I'm getting tired of getting asked these questions. Well, a lot of people may be getting tired of your antics. You say that you was interested in a fight with Gary Anton Russell. And next thing you know, that fight falls through. You say, well, maybe somewhere down the line. Okay, the Schofield fight falls through. You don't seem to be interested in a De La Santo rematch. You don't seem to be interested in a El Rio fight at this time. So what's it gonna be? Tank's not gonna be available till sometime next year. So basically it's gonna be 2 years since we saw Tank by the time he comes back, and we don't know how Tank's gonna look being out of the ring for 2 years. So, like I said, man, it's not looking too good for Shakur Stevenson right now. One thing about Zuffa, and I'm not going to get into the pros and cons with the Ali Act and all that kind of stuff. They're going to expect you to fight some people if they're going to pay you top dollar. They wanted to come out the gate and make the Devin Haney fight for pretty much obvious reasons, which everybody knows the reason you elected not to take the fight, because you was concerned about, Devin Haney's weight. And then a lot of people feel that there's a lack of confidence. A lot of people just starting to see that it's a lack of confidence, and that's all it come down to with Shakur. That's why he's starting to look like insecure Stevenson instead of Shakur, because he don't seem too sure of himself. I mean, I'm just telling the truth, and I know people don't like for dudes to tell the truth on these platforms, but like I said, I heard from 3 different sources. Whether Devin made this amount of money or that amount of money compared to Shakur Stevenson and all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, the fight not happening pretty much because of Shakur Stevenson. And you guys know that eventually, and you already done heard Dana White openly admit saying that, hey, I'm paying Shakur Stevenson a shitload of money. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Dana is going to constantly remind Shakur Stevenson of that. And Dana White don't have no problem, taking shots at his own fighters. Because Dana White called himself trying to take over boxing. So he felt like he had a good jump start on basically trying to take over boxing, doing it the Dana White way. And they figured they made a power move by signing Shakur and then trying to make Shakur versus Devin Haney. And basically the fight fell through because Shakur just was like, And it's a shame that these fighters, after a while, when you start to really see how they move, you start to change your opinion of them. Like I said, Devin had Shakur in a box. Shakur said, hey, I'm not a real welterweight. Okay, well, if we fight at a catchweight of 144, then the fight is on. Okay, well, Devin calls his bluff and said, okay, I'll do 144. Do we have a fight? Then he started talking this stuff, and you knew Shakur didn't want the fight when he started talking about you got to drop the belt and all that kind of stuff. And then you had a lot of people that was trying to make logical sense out of that. Why are you worried about somebody fighting somebody else? And then all this stuff about your brother and all this kind of stuff, to a certain degree, by saying, hey, I won't fight this dude, fight that dude because they my brothers and all that kind of stuff. But then you told Tim Bradley a while back it wasn't no brotherhood. Well, if it ain't no brotherhood, you should be willing to fight all these dudes. Okay, you said Raymond Ford was your guy, and you would think that you would want some get back because basically Shakur Foster convincingly beat the dude that's supposed to be. Okay, I'll go in there and I'll fight Shakur Foster. Nah, you don't want that fight. You say he ain't that good, which I think that's mind-boggling. I think that's mind-boggling, and it's heartbreaking to see Shakur always like trying to tear down these black fighters and stuff. But look how he moved though. This is a man that said Sugar Ray Robinson wasn't that good. This is a man that sits up here and really believes that Tyson Fury could beat Muhammad Ali. Okay, I don't believe that. I don't believe that Tyson Fury could have beat a lot of fighters. I think pretty much all the fighters, pretty much the key fighters from the 70s and the 80s pretty much beat Tyson Fury. I don't think he could have beat Larry Holmes. I don't think he could have beat like for real. I think all those dudes would have found a way to beat him. Didn't even know who Hagler was. But that's what I'm saying. This is what this dude does. And then when you call them guys, look forward. I ain't gonna say look forward. You could always guarantee that Tank is gonna say something stupid, because Tank is another one that loves to attack black fighters. But it just happens too far in between with these dudes. And as a media person, it gets sickening after a while. And when you a black man and you see other black fighters doing this to each other, they never display that same energy for the non-black fighters. But they'll get online, they'll get on social media and try to tear down the brothers, but give a pass to the other. Look how these dudes turned their back on Devin Haney when they know Ryan Garcia cheated, and Ryan Garcia still trying to ride a wave out that Devin Haney fight. Listen, dude, you cheated. It ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You cheated. You accepted the suspension. So obviously you was guilty of something. You can sit up there and talk about and lie about how much of that Ostarine was in your system. At the end of the day, you agreed to take the suspension. You didn't want to fight it because you was looking at a 2-year suspension. If you would have had a hearing and they would have found you guilty of intentionally, so you basically, copped a plea. But you going on these media outlets acting like you innocent. That's just real talk. So there you have it. Shakur just didn't want the fight. It's a duck. And I mean, what's out there for Shakur is starting to get the slim pickings. Like, dude, who you gonna fight? When are you gonna fight? I'm telling you, it's not looking good for the kid.